What is up, YouTubers, and welcome back to Jesse's Random Survival Tips on the Ruffleberry Pwnecake channel. This has been long awaited, so I'm just going to jump right into it. Today's episode and random tool is trash bags, if you haven't already seen the link up below. Now, a lot of people ask me, what can a trash bag do? Well, I'll tell you, I have these in my bag, and for my own namesake, I'm going to put it on the line and tell you what I would do with a trash bag. Well, I have so many things I have to put it on a clipboard, so let's just jump right into topic number one. Basic survival. What can a trash bag do for you? Water collection would be the first thing. It can collect rainwater, so let's say you're in the Pacific Northwest or you just want to get some natural water. It can act as a rain catcher or a water basin. Setting up a well, maybe a bag up in a tree, it'll catch all that water and you'll be good to go. Again, that water's not exactly going to be fresh because contaminants, bird poop, that sort of thing can get in there. So I still recommend that you boil the water just to be absolutely safe. Maybe filter it with a shirt or something like that. But it can act first off as a water collection device. Second off, it can act as a solar still. Now what that is I would recommend using a clear plastic bag simply so you can see what's going on. But a black plastic one works really well because it pulls in heat. Now let me tell you, what you're going to want to do, let's say you're on a stranded on a beach for the sake of scenarios. No fresh water anywhere, you got to get water. You will die. And so you dig a pit about the size of this table. Dig down, I'd say about that deep, about a foot, or 6 or 7 inches, it doesn't really matter. What you're going to do is you're going to take your cup, well for the sake of argument this is a cup. You're going to fill your cup full of seawater and drench the sand around it. You can even use urine. That works as well. And again, drinking pure urine is horrible for you, and I don't recommend that. So this is a good way of second harvesting, so to speak. But fill that, drench the sand around it until it's completely soaked mush. Place the cup down in the middle of this little bog you've got going on. Take a plastic trash bag, like the one I have here, flatten it out nice and neat, and place it over the pit. Now, anchor it with some rocks, and keep it away from the water for the most part, because if you're not careful, the tide might come in and ruin your work. So make sure it's a little bit away, but make sure it's in direct sunlight all day long, for the most part. You're going to want to anchor it all the way around with rocks, and then place a pebble in the middle. Now that pebble, what it's going to do, during the day, the sun is going to heat up the inside, like a greenhouse. If you've ever seen a greenhouse, there's condensation all over the walls. The water is going to come up and try to evaporate, but condense on the plastic. What's going to happen is it's all going to run to one focal point where that pebble is, and it's all going to drip drop into this little cup. And it's going to effectively desalinate the water, and you're not going to have to worry about contamination because it's just vapor. It's not going to get contaminated by anything simply because it hasn't had the chance to be contaminated. So it's just going to effectively drip into the cup. While this isn't a perfect way, if you set up several solar stills, you're going to have at least 1 liter of water a day. One will give you about, I'd say, half to a fourth of a cup. So setting up a couple of them, if you can, is a good thing. But if you can't, it'll give you some water. And it'll be able to filter it safely without you having to resort to extremes like drinking your own pee. Which is not a good thing. Again, I warn you. But that's just one thing. Again, there are millions of ways to collect water and tons of ways to do it, but there's just a couple ways. Also, if you're worried about sanitation, simply get some water, poke some holes, and you eventually got a shower bag. You have to spend $17.99 for a shower bag from Walmart, Cabela's, or Dick's, or anything like that, but you have a shower bag to say the least. Also, protecting your gear. Now, if you get wet, it's imperative that you dry off. Water and being soaked can sap your heat, and if your body heat goes below the recommended body temperature, you will die. You will freeze to death or go into shock, and it is not a good thing. So if you're going to be hiking in some place like the Pacific Northwest, I recommend you make a little poncho out of some trash bags. Poke a couple holes, or just put it over you, as in to put your head through a hole, or just put it over the backpack, and you eventually will be protecting all this. Now people will say, what about those holes? What if it gets in there? Well, I thought about that as well, and all you gotta do, and it's gonna look goofy, but it's effective. It doesn't matter how you look in survival, it's about surviving. You simply place that over your head, maybe tie it, and you essentially got a little poncho on your head, and it'll all run down the back and stay away from the holes. And it also protects your neck where a lot of heat is given off, and it'll just keep you dry. Again, these are not perfect, but they're good enough to keep you alive and to keep you dry. If you're a little damp, you'll survive, but if you're soaked, you won't. It's important that you stay dry, and that's why I recommend you carry at least a roll of this in your bag. It's light, they're cheap and affordable, and they have a billion uses. So, yeah, just keep yourself dry and everything like that, and you'll be okay. Second thing, and my final for this half of the video, will be waste management and trash. A lot of people don't think that your waste is important to get rid of, but if you dig a little benjo ditch next to your house, chances are you're probably going to trip into it in the middle of the night if you're moving around a lot. And you don't want to get fecal matter on you because it's filled with diseases. And topping off, the smell is very off-putting and can make you very sick. So what I recommend, and it's not necessary, again, just dig the ditch a little further away from your home and you'll be okay. But you could probably use a trash bag to collect the waste and keep it away from you. Waste is disgusting, that's why they call it what it is. So, yeah, I would recommend that. And maybe you could even compost inside the trash bag. Again, I don't do that kind of stuff, but I've heard it's doable. So, there's a little idea too. Also, getting rid of your trash. Let's say you find some berries and some fish and you're eating that and you have the leftovers. Let's say you're living in Alaska where bears are everywhere, or predators. They will rip your face off, they'll raid your camp and kill you because they smell, cooked fish. A good way and a classic survival tip is to actually put it in the bag and suspend it in a tree or someplace high so it preoccupies them. They're not attracted to you, they're attracted to the smell of the food in the bag. Maybe poke a hole so they're attracted to that. I would go one step further and placing it down here on the tree and being up on a hill where I can see and have a vantage point where I'm okay. Here's my options. I can fortify and stay and fight, or I can just get the heck out of here. So that way you have a little bit of time before something bad might happen. So make sure to keep your waste picked up. Not only is it a good thing to keep predators away, but it's also a good thing to keep bacteria from growing, and that smell again can nauseate you and you don't want to get sick. So that's important as well. Well guys, that's the end of this first half of this video. This is the episode of Trash Bags. I'll see you guys in a minute as I set back up for the second half. Stay tuned. Thank you. Welcome back guys, I'm Jesse of course, and this is the Ruffleberry Pancake channel, and this is Jesse's Random Survival Tips. Episode 2 of the Trash Bag, or Part 2 I guess. Now, where we left off we were talking about waste management. Now we're going to segue into the third installment of this. That is transport and safety devices. Now, a lot of people will be like, what could you do with a trash bag? Effectively, back in the days of the Native Americans, they would make boats from the skins and the hides. They would cover them in pitch or something and make a stick ribbing inside, much like the ribbing of an actual boat. And they would cover it in skins and they would seal it up, and you'd have an effective little canoe. You can do the same thing with this, and if you have duct tape on hand, you're pretty much set. By putting these around, you have yourself a trash bag skin canoe. It's not exactly perfect, but it's more than enough to get you floating down the river. Again, they aren't meant for longevity, but it's enough to get you where you need to go. If there's a waterway or something large blocking your path to getting somewhere safely. Now, I don't recommend that you go down a river in a boat if you're not exactly water savvy. It's very dangerous. You can drown. Lots of variables can happen, but it's a way of making a little boat. Again, that's provided that you have the ability, I would say, that a mariner would have. But you can also make things such as sails out of trash bags by tying them together. It's an effective little sail. If you make a boat, you can have your rigging made of trash bags as well cut. When you are tying things together with a trash bag, here's one thing I need to tell you. Instead of cutting it in strips and tying it, they can pull apart and tear. What you need to do is you need to twist them nice and tight, much like twine, and then wrap things in them. That gives them extra strength for some reason. It just kind of ups their durability. So if you are going to tie things together, especially sailboat rigging or boat rigging, be sure to twist it before you tie it. So that's kind of like how rope is made anyway. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So that's my ideas on transport. Also safety. When it comes to getting across a waterway, like I showed you earlier with that bag covered in like a poncho, what you can do effectively is when you are, instead of poking holes, get a new trash bag out. If you have this, again, this is if you have extra bags. Or you can just tie the hole in a knot and it'll be adjacent to it. Catch a little air and then wrap it around your bag. There's only going to be a little air, but it'll make it buoyant enough to where it'll float. Now that's not enough, and if you want to be really safe, make a couple of these. They're just simple balloons, or floats, or buoys, or whatever you call it. Simply pop the bag, catch the air, and tie it up really good, and you've got an effective flotation device. Tie it real tight, and there you go. This is very buoyant, and it actually works very well. It'll act as some makeshift water wings as well. By tying them together with some rope, and then placing your bag over it, you have an effective flotation device or a little barge for yourself. That way your gear doesn't get soaked, and you can also get across any kind of waterway or anything like that safely without having to worry about drowning. Now, if you are going with a current, I do have to recommend that if you're going against it, don't try to swim directly across, and don't fight the current. Go with it and go diagonally with it. Eventually you will reach the other side, provided you're in the right situation. Again, if it's raging rapids, that's really dangerous, and it's a risk. It's a calculated risk. I can't tell you it's not a good idea because people have done it and survived, but I can't say that it's a bad idea either or, because you can die, but you can also live. So it's just one of those things you're going to have to decide for yourself, depending on how dangerous the situation is. But that's one way of getting through safely, and those will hold a lot of weight because the buoyancy and the air displacement of the water and the air being the way they are. Much like trying to float a balloon on in a pool, so to speak. But that's one way to use trash bags as a safety device and a transportation device. Moving on. Shelter. This is an obvious one. A poncho could be used as a form of shelter, but what I'm talking about is, what if you're stuck somewhere indeterminately and you do not know when you are going to be picked up, or what if you're just staying somewhere and you don't have a lot of money, but you just so happen to have a lot of these? Well, first off, I want to start off by saying a lot of people can either build a teepee or some sort of little hut, and a lot of times I've seen these huts made, they use palm fronds and conifer branches, and a lot of the water gets shedded off, but a lot of it drips through. Well, in roofing, what they do is they lay down a rubberized pad underneath all of the shingles that helps shed even more water off. What I mean is if you have like a little pinnacle and you have leaves over it, that's fine and dandy, but the water will still drip through. If you place a trash bag over it, the water will actually slough off and down. When you do this, make sure it's tied at the top and the bottom, nice and tight, because you don't want it to bow like so. And all that water will collect, and eventually it'll pop and burst and get you all wet. Or collapse the shelter. So you want to make sure it's tight so the water will run off easily. Also, when you are sleeping, a lot of crosswinds. Now that you got your roof, you got to worry about you down here where you're at. Wind can come through and just get you nice and cold. Rain's still going, and you're safe from that, but that wind is just getting you and it's biting. What do? A homeless person once told me, again, you can be safe with a trash bag stuffed full of leaves. At least, at first I thought, this is stupid. This is where a black trash bag would come in handy. What you do is you get several of them and stuff them full of leaves. Leaves, like most paper products, with this will trap body heat and reflect it or absorb it and hold it. Sort of like the insulation in the walls in your house. What will happen is you set those around the circumference of your TB or your shelter or your hut or whatever. You place that in between, and you'll have an effective little heat shelter. It'll keep you protected. Again, you can make it as big as you want, but the fire will come in and it will stay. First, because the leaves trap the heat, and the black actually keeps it from getting through. And since it's airtight, it won't have anywhere to go but stay circulating in there. Air might get a little stale, but you'll stay warm. Also, during the day, and it's cold, the sun will hit this, and since it's black and black absorbs heat, all that heat will get stuck inside the bag and actually stay within the leaves, and the leaves will help hold it together, sort of like the layering in your fiberglass protection. The paper holds it back, and the fiberglass holds that hot air. What will happen is also stay warm, and inside you will stay nice and comfortable. So it's a little bit of insulation science, but I'm pretty sure at this point you can understand where I'm coming from on this. It'll trap that heat, keep you nice and warm, and you don't have to worry about rain or wind, because wind will not go through this because it's an impermeable surface, provided you don't have holes all over it. But yeah, that's one way of protecting you. I can remember when I was a little kid, just to validate this, I hid in a pile of trash bags full of leaves. And I remember I'm in my coat and it's rainy outside, and I get under there and it's just burning hot after about an hour of me hiding. And we were playing hide and seek. It got so hot I had to take my jacket off. I'm like, good Lord, it's burning up in here. Well, it just only validates that not only does the sunlight, it may be cold outside, but the sun will continue to shine and the black will continue to absorb the light. And what happens is all that hot light and all that heat will get trapped inside and keep you insulated like an igloo, so to speak. In my instance, that's what it was. And it'll keep you nice and safe. And since it's plastic, again, it will slough off the water and it won't get soaked. Finally, bedding. Nobody likes having to sleep on the ground. You have a blanket or something like that. Again, you can just do the classic hippie style beanbag. Fill it up with leaves, whatever have you, whatever soft stuff you can find. Not only will this act as a beanbag, keep you off the ground and keep you from a wet ground or muddy water soaking into you, or your heat just getting stuck and being pulled into the ground and you getting cold. Again, I don't recommend you sleep on the floor anyway because there's bugs, but it'll keep you away from all that sort of stuff. Again, the leaves will trap the heat, recirculate it, and keep you warm, and the bed will get warm the longer you sleep on it. So that's a good way of trapping heat and keeping yourself warm, keeping yourself dry, and keeping yourself off the ground where your heat gets sapped and pulled into the ground. So that's pretty much all I have right now. Again, I could not possibly tell you guys everything that these could be used for because there's a million and one uses for just about anything, honestly. But I really hope that these tips will be able to not only churn your imagination, but also help you in the event of a survival situation. And I really do hope you guys consider having these awesome devices in your bag. As primitive and as simple as they are, they're often overlooked, but I really hope you guys will consider having these. You can make shelter, have flotation devices, waste management and protection. Basic survival supplies can be thrown into this one basic thing and protect you from all sorts of elements and situations. I really recommend these for you guys, and I really hope that you guys will take my word for it. Well guys, I'm Jesse, and this is Jesse's Random Survival Tips episode Trash Bag. I hope this helped. You guys have a nice day.